Yeah,
this
this was
that.
sort of an early conceptual, which when I say early, it was 2 days before we got pictures to show this. So the architect is sort of just a conceptual idea what it would be, but we would have, as you stated, the driveways would go alongside the property. There's an effort to see if there's some very nice trees in the front. We're going to try and see if there's a way to save those trees. And so we're taking a look at that as well too.
So at some point you put the trees on the
Yeah. Well,
maps.
it's an issue we're trying to
Because
make sure we
I
get.
went by and there
Yeah.
are some real
Yeah.
nice trees there.
The trees are nicer than the garages, which was.
Yeah.
The garage is going to, because we have to make room for it. But, and the house, I think, we kind of like it because it has some interesting character.
Yeah, the side room.
Yeah.
That's cute. So I guess I'm getting back to the typical occupant would be a couple with a couple kids.
Yeah, let me take a step back. We went through an exercise with the Affordable Housing Commission several years ago in terms of who would get priority for these when they become available. And we came up with a sort of a laundry list of priorities. It would be subject to people being interested in buying them, but the preference would be given to a Jamestown resident who was a fireman. Then it was a town worker, then a school worker, then there was people who worked in other businesses in town. People who had relatives in town that may not live here but wanted to come back here. And we went through a long criteria of potential people. So we would work with the Affordable Housing Commission to review that and go through a similar process. But generally what we do is we run ongoing classes. We have an 8-course class that goes over 5 months. And every family has to take before they buy a house, which is primarily to get people mortgage ready, to understand their land leases, their responsibility. We go through in detail every section of it so they know what they're getting, unlike most people who buy a house. We think we have the best informed buyers when they actually get to the bank. They actually know what all the documents say. But we get them prepared so they know their responsibilities for owning the house, what it's going to take to get their mortgage, and then their ongoing responsibilities on the land lease property, as well as what happens when they go to sell it and the next family comes along. So we've been doing this since 1994, running these classes. We run 3 classes a year. We've had over 300 graduates. We've had several people who have taken the class who have connections in Jamestown or are actually Jamestown residents. They're interested in these, depending on if they qualify to bank at any one time, they'll be considered. But we give preference to Jamestown residents as directed by the Affordable Housing Commission.
And that's also in the Affordable Housing Plan as well, that was approved by the Town Council. Those preferences.
Steve, what's your timeline to take from this phase to actual final design, approval of funding?
Well, we have to meet the requirements of our sales agreement, which I believe we have to have this approval and have our funding in place by the end of September.
180 days.
And we have to close, I think, within 45 days of that, which our funding, all of our funding, we know about our funding. Just I'm not sure about the town exactly that process because this is the first time all the way through, but the rest of the financing would be in place by middle of August.
So when would you need final approval from the Planning Commission?
I think our goal is to try and get back here in July to get this approval because then there's a
For the first public hearing.
and then what we would ask for at that point is if everything is fine, then the final approval would be administrative. And I'm sorry, I
It
think
could be, it's the Planning Commission's discretion
depending on whether we need to get
as
back
to whether
there.
final approval comes back.
But ultimately, to meet our obligation with the sales agreement, we need to get all our approvals in place by May.
Yeah, so you've got a tremendous amount of work to do in a short time to do it. And that includes notifying the butters and a notice of public hearing.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. Now, I would say that we have, in the past, we did with Cottrell Farm, scheduled the hearing. So we could schedule the hearing for the July meeting if it's okay with the Planning Commission. At the same time as the preliminary review, also have the hearing.
And you have final design of architectural drawings and
Well, we don't need those for the approval. And basically, the statute, I think what you've received is actually all that's necessary for the process, but we are going to proceed subject to the approvals. And the architect said there's no problem. It's a fairly straightforward home. It's not that complicated. So, I mean, I guess my main thing are concerns about drainage issues, if there's any concerns that the members have.
Well, Michael mentioned, I think, the parking and preferring to go side-by-side parking. There was a lot
I just want to make sure there's enough off-street parking so that Swinburne Street doesn't get squeezed down.
We have proposed, again, 40 feet long, which a typical vehicle is 15 feet, a typical parking spot is 20 feet, but you could park max to that.
Yeah, I like your plan a lot better than Lon's.
Yeah, we do too.
Thank you.
Anything else for the,
Do you have your funding sources identified? Yes. As I said, the building home for Island application is going to be decided in August. And the community development ones, they'll be decided in August.
So did we decide, is he gonna try to, are you gonna work on drainage for the existing house or not?
We can do that. Yeah, we can come up with, similar to what we have for the other parcels, something to that. We can come up with some calculations and so forth for that. Yes. I think,
That's what you mean.
and what I can also do is I can speak with Mike Gray a little bit more in regards to the cistern, concept and so forth. We kind of have our own conversations about things like that as things develop with different meetings. I'll talk to you a little bit more about something to that effect, how we can possibly do that.
going back to timelines and approvals. Planning to gut and rehab the existing structure. For some reason at the last minute, or even after our approval, that becomes unrealistic. How does that affect our?
I think that's okay. I mean, what you're granting is subdivision approval. And so I think that it would be their option if they couldn't make it work to build a new structure.
All right, last chance before we.
I would add the comment that I think it's a great plan, and hopefully we can make it work. I hope that we can retain the character of the cottages that you show in the proposed sketches. And my only comment, character-wise, would be it would be great if the existing house could be a two-story, and we could hold that streetscape. Even though I don't know what trees you'd like to say, it would be great to hold the streetscape in the tent. I mean, the street edge. Because that, as you go up that street to the library and so on, it'd be very nice to have a row of cottages there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
So that's the second meeting in July?
Well, if you want to stay there, because we were going to discuss schedule going forward and vacation, I think we want to address that, so let's go there. Before we adjourn, you had mentioned, you wanted to kind of pull the commission here as to what's going to happen vacation-wise, and certainly this in front of us, that's important.
Yes, I didn't bring my calendar. Our meetings in July are the 7th and the 7th and the 21st. So neither of them really conflict with 4th of July necessarily. We often take the first meeting of July off just because it's often conflicting with the 4th of July holiday. So it's really the option of the Planning Commission whether they want to take a meeting off in July. I think if we have some scheduling issues, we should certainly skip a meeting.
Did anybody have scheduling issues with this 7th and the 21st? Not. Everybody's going to be here.
Committed group.
So Lisa, for this application, where would you expect this to fall?
Pardon me? On the 21st.